Welcome to the Ronde van Vlaanderen, also known as the Tour of Flanders. With 109 kilometers to ride, we have 6 breakaway riders, being Marcel Lefebvre, Ludwig Kona, Jeff Cooper, Hippolyte Toutain, and then Natalia has Joaquin Pinto and Kelvin Moore. So an advantage for Natalia having 2 riders up here, but of course all the teams represented in the breakaway are in good position because the other teams are responsible for doing the chasing behind. So that is why Sismic, VeloTour Forstall, and VeloTour are doing all of the work in the peloton. Still a long way to go, but this race, just like Paris-Roubaix, has so many obstacles and it's so brutal and so long that pretty much anything can happen in the finale of the race. A real course for the strongmen like Jamal Safari. We saw what he could do in Paris-Roubaix. So we'll see if VeloTour Forstall has an encore performance for the second big cobbled monument. And as a reminder, this race is worth 850 points for the winner. So just like the other 4 monument races, this is a really important race for the VeloTour team standings. Kyoto have to be excited about their position because even though they're down into 3rd place after their results in the previous Sprinter Classics, they are in great position to strike back, especially with the bonus monument points available. They have a rider in the break with Hippolyte Toutain and plenty of options behind, including Egan Kallas, Yannick Verhoeven, and Oscar Galati. The rival teams like AlphaTauri and VeloTour definitely ought to be on the back foot because their options a bit more limited today, but it's not impossible to get a decent result. Now the breakaway is approaching the Muur Kapelmuur, a very famous climb on the Tour of Flanders route. It's very steep and of course it's cobbled because that's how the hills work in the Tour of Flanders. So it looks like Toutain will lead the break onto the climb. We'll see if this is a point in the course where secondary attacks start to emerge from the peloton. Teams are always trying to get riders up the road into strong groups just like this one because it enhances their tactical flexibility later on in the course. And we're getting an attack now from Jean-Marie Caillou, Adrien Bernard, and Eloisa Donna. An advanced party trying to make a move on the Kapelmuur. Very surprised to see Caillou leading the charge here. He's a climber not known for these kinds of races, but after winning the Giro d'Italia, he must be feeling very confident. And happy to be a team player as well, because that's not the type of attack you make to win the race, it's to set it up for another teammate. And interestingly, he was the first of his teammates over his climb. See a lot of orange jerseys near the back of that peloton, so they need to get in good position. Because in the Tour of Flanders, if you're in the back of the pack on one of these cobbled climbs, you have a good chance of getting gapped and falling away from the race. And you see Adrien Bernard is not letting up, trying to launch an attack to get up the road. This is what you need to do in the Tour of Flanders, is to force a move and get up the road. One of the few races where you're not in an advantageous position just sitting in the wheels all the time. Looks like Lefebvre's been dropped also from the front group of 6. As well as another rider. And look at the gaps that formed over the top of the Kapelmuur. Ude Baya and Rome's bringing back the second group. Just a number of dark horses and outsiders. And a third group with some Hackett and Castelli riders coming across as well. We'll have to see if Adrien Bernard made any progress up the road because I think he had tried another attack, but I'm not sure if he'd been caught or not. So we'll see if the observer can get up there. As Ibai Lida languishing in a group behind, and it's Caillou once again. The slim French climber is taking on all the larger classics men in the Tour of Flanders. He's taken Eloisa Donna, Harold Skavgo, Yevgeny Polashkov, and Adrien Bernard with him. That is a nice group of 5. This is exactly the kind of move that you want, especially if you're AlphaTauri. They need to put Kyoto under pressure and force them to start chasing. Use up those precious numbers and limit their options later in the race. As for all of Kyoto's strength, as we've seen in their recent races, their weakness is the sprints. And if the Tour of Flanders comes down to a sprint of any kind, Kyoto are at a disadvantage. So it's actually Kyoto that needs to consider forcing a big move. But still a long ways to go, over 75 kilometers to ride. And the two groups have come together now, a leading group of 10 by 1 minute 26 seconds. This is a very dangerous move. Just like in Paris-Roubaix when that move with Jamal Safari and others went up the road, if you have too much firepower in the front group, it's very hard to bring them back. Sumi Kim working at the front now. Very small Korean climber, surprised she's still in this group, but looking quite strong. And if VeloTour right above themselves today, they could really limit the damage. Because although the VeloTour team is in first place, Kyoto and AlphaTauri are not far behind, and with so many points at stake, this could really be a turning point in the season. Calvin Moore is still doing work at the front despite being caught by that advanced chase group. Combative rider that he is. Bit of an interlude in this part of the course. We'll get into the hectic finale in around 15 kilometers time. A little bit of rolling terrain and a mostly plateaued part of the course here. 24 riders still at the front of the pack. A chase group of 25 trying to come across, led by Franck Chausson. And a number of Euskaltel riders, actually all of the Euskaltel riders, trying to get back up here. Incredibly, the only Euskaltel rider in front of these is Jean-Marie Caillou, who is in the leading group. So I'm not sure what the tactics are for Euskaltel today. A team with so much momentum coming out of the Giro, and in a race where they should be doing most of the dominating, they are on the back foot. Look how many Kyoto riders are here. I count 6 pink jerseys in this group, and a 7th is up the road, and Hippolyte Toutain. I think Ernesto Martinez, probably the only Kyoto rider not in the front 34 riders. And they have not done a lick of work at all in the Tour of Flanders with 60 Ks to go. They certainly have the most firepower in reserve. Here comes Safari, already at the front of the race. Spending some energy. I think that indicates that Virgil Lazarescu is going to be the leader for Futura Forstall. And now we come up to the Haut de Quermont. This is the longest and hardest climb in the Tour of Flanders. So this is the second passage in the race. We went over it before many kilometers ago, and we'll go over it one more time with around 25 kilometers to ride. It's Eloisa Donna of Jupiler leading the pack. And we'll see if a big move forms from the peloton. Jonathan Kaiser of Futura Forstall setting a fierce tempo. You see Sismic have their 2 top riders in position. That's Martins and Tamirzanov. And the peloton is breaking up here, and so is the breakaway. Toutain has been dropped. Look at the damage being done from the Quermont. It'll take some time to sort out all the groups. I won't go through them all. It seems VeloTour's riders have been dropped because I saw Uda sitting up there, so Loiken is not in these front groups. 2 from Sismic, 2 from Futura Forstall. Launching a move to try and get up to the breakaway. Onto the Paterberg now, straight after the Quermont. Very, very steep little climb. The AlphaTauri riders in the break looking very good. There's Jerome Loiken in that second main group. It looks like a group of 5 has escaped from the original group of 10 over the Paterberg. The 3 AlphaTauri riders who are going full gas now, a 3-man team time trial pretty much. They know there's so many Kyoto riders behind them, they need to form a big gap. Kelvin Moore is still here, and I think that's Donna of Jupiler. 11 riders in this group led by Jonathan Kaiser. Tamirzanov is here. Martins is here. 3 Kyoto riders as well. And this is the VeloTour group. Probably a minute and a half behind the front of the race, if I had to guess. Now we turn right onto the Koppenberg. Kaiser still driving the group along. That's Glenn Martins in his wheel. These little steep climbs, so decisive. You have to go full out, max effort on these to not get dropped. Just a real show of force for the riders at the front of the race here. And look at AlphaTauri putting everyone else to the sword, at least from the breakaway group. But that second chase group, which has those Kyoto riders and the Futura Forstall and Sismic, those 3 teams working together, and they're slowly bringing back this attack by AlphaTauri. brave assault by AlphaTauri though. This is the tactic they needed to employ, if they were going to pull off a surprise in the Tour of Flanders. But it hasn't worked, and Luigi Belle, their best rider on paper for this race, he's in a group behind by 1 minute. So he needs to count on these Vlaanderen riders to get him back in contention. Cailloux's brave escape has been caught, so he's in the second group here. But this group of 14 looking the strongest. Onto the Tyenberg now, 38 kilometers to ride. It's always great to see the Joa 4-star riding aggressively. They're a team with few highlights, but the ones they do have are quite spectacular, most notably that Paris-Roubaix. And in these one-day races, and on occasion, on a certain stage in the stage race, that team puts on a real show. One of the more entertaining and enigmatic squads in the VeloTour, even though they're at the bottom of the team standings. Sismic has had a number of misses in terms of the one-day classics. This is a chance to atone for all of that because Glenn Martens is on his home roads. This is the race he really wants to win. His grandfather, Freddie Martens, never got this one in his storied career. So we'll see if Glenn can put matters to rights. His teammate Ruslan Tamirzanov now trying to control the tempo. 30 Ks to go, 3 more climbs. First the Hotonberg, which we'll go on to now, then one more passage up the Quermont and the Paterberg. And Adrian Bernard is not waiting for those, he's going right now. The star AlphaTauri rider is trying a big move once again. He's got Odo Schmid, Virgil Lazarescu, Oscar Galati, and Glenn Martens. A very aggressive move, still 28 kilometers to ride, and Virgil Lazarescu wants to keep it going. Martens is still there, Galati and Odo Schmid. Stronger before Kalas has bridged across the gap. Bernard is cracked. Well, he threw everything at that move, and look at the gap to the rest of the field. This is nearly 2 minutes ahead of the next group of 6. So this group of 5 is taken off, and this is likely the final selection in the Tour of Flanders. It was started by Adrian Bernard, and he cracked unfortunately. It was Lazarescu who kept it going, and now Glenn Martens wants to make the group even smaller. He's got the Kyoto duo by surprise. We have this downhill section here, and then we'll turn right through the village and on to the Quermont. Kalas and Galati not giving up. The fact that it's Kalas sacrificing himself to give Galati the best chance. Galati has been quiet this season, but he's a quality talent. Good for these types of races like the Tour of Flanders that require so many different attributes for success. But it's Odo Schmid, probably the least likely to be in this group based on our expectations, but he's leading the charge over the Quermont. Kalas being distanced after getting Galati back in the front group. It's Lazarescu, Galati, and Martens following in the wheel. Schmid has put forth a big attack, it hasn't worked. He needs to stay in the wheels now, he's looking tired. And Lazarescu continuing to push the tempo. None of these riders really known for their sprinting. I'd say they're all on about the same level. So I think each thinking their best chance of winning is getting rid of the other 3. And look at the time gaps now, they're over 3 minutes ahead of the next meaningful group. That second group includes Eloisa Donna and some other outsiders, but this is clearly going to be the group of the winning rider. Kalas has been distanced as well, we've gone over the Paterberg. It's Glenn Martens launching a big move. He knows he needs to win alone because he's not a good sprinter, and look at this attack by Glenn Martens. With 13 Ks to ride, this is an all or nothing attack by Glenn Martens. Galati and Lazarescu, probably the next 2 strongest riders. I think Odo Schmid is cooked now. Doesn't have the energy to come through and chase Glenn Martens. Well, this is a risky attack by Glenn Martens, but it also could be his best chance to win the race. To try a move over the top of the Paterberg and then hold them off on the flat road to the finish. 10 kilometers to go. This chase group is not organized. They should have the firepower to pull back Glenn Martens, but none of these 3 riders wants to sacrifice their own chance to chase down the Belgian attacker. Well, Glenn Martens joined the VeloTour specifically to try and win this race, and his ambition looks like it could pay off. 6 kilometers to ride, his gap over the chasers close to 30 seconds. He needs to maintain his tempo all the way through the final kilometer. We've seen attacks like this get caught with just meters to go, just like in the Omloop Newsblad. But I think Martens is too spirited to let that happen. The gap is even bigger. It's 34 seconds now, 3 kilometers to ride. His team did a lot of work throughout the race. They were not in the early breakaway. They kept it under control anyway. Ruslan Temirzanov, spectacular as a domestique today. And Glenn Martens, the strongest in that final selection. He has finished off his attack in brilliant fashion. The sprint behind will not catch him, and Glenn Martens takes the Tour of Flanders. The rest of the breakaway is totally exhausted, but Oscar Galati will take the sprint for second place. A landmark result in his campaign, and a huge result for Kyoto. Here comes Egan Kalas in no man's land. He got Galati back in that front group. He's still 4 minutes ahead of the next group. Tells you all you need to know about the Tour of Flanders and how hard this race can be. He will take 5th place. And after getting wiped out in the Sprinters Classics, Kyoto have landed 2 riders in the top 5 of the Tour of Flanders. And with the bonus points for being a monument, they will surely be the new leaders in the team standings. A huge result for the team in pink. Here comes the sprint for 6th place. And I have to say, Temirzanov would definitely deserve it. A brilliant teammate for Glenn Martens today, so well-deserved 6th place for the Azerbaijani rider. Bernard did so much attacking, so he's rewarded with a 7th place rather. And that'll be your first 16 riders. 8 minutes back to this next group. Luigi Belle, a huge disappointment for AlphaTauri. When you finish 1 place ahead of Jean-Marie Caillou in the Tour of Flanders, when you're Luigi Belle, I think that says all you need to know about his race. Not on the level he needed to be at. He should have been up near the front of the bike race. So after such a huge momentum shift in the recent Sprinter Classics, where AlphaTauri and VeloTour overhauled Kyoto, the Japanese team strikes back in a huge fashion. We'll see how it shakes out with the points, but for now, let's take a look at the results of the Tour of Flanders. In first place with his solo attack over the Paterberg, it was Glenn Martens of Sismic, winning by 27 seconds ahead of the group with Oscar Galati, Virgil Lazarescu, and Odo Schmid. 3 minutes 39 seconds back in 5th place was Egan Kalas of Kyoto. That makes 2 riders in the top 5 for that team. The brilliant Ruslan Temirzanov led home the next big group in 6th place, 7 minutes 29 seconds back, with Adrian Bernard, Lachlan Baines, Jeff Cooper, and Eloise Adona finishing your top 10. The highest ranked VeloTour rider was Jerome Moikin in 16th place. So a huge point swing going over to Kyoto. This was what they needed. They put the hammer down. They were in such good position tactically with Hippolyte Toutant in the early breakaway, and their 2 strongest riders getting inside the top 5. The updated team standings, a return to normalcy, especially if you're a Kyoto fan. They have reclaimed the lead, now with 8,644 points. They have jumped from 3rd up to 1st. AlphaTauri remains in 2nd place, over 400 points back, yet VeloTour now facing an 800 point deficit in 3rd place. Futura Forrestal, by virtue of their 3rd place today with Virgil Lazarescu, they have jumped 3 places up into 7th. So the bottom teams starting to claw back a little bit, but Sismic needed a huge result to maintain their spot in the middle of the pack, and by winning the race with Glenn Martens, they've gotten just that. Euskaltel failing to meet expectations today, so Sismic and Hackett still in reach to steal that 4th place away from Euskaltel. But the monument points from the Tour of Flanders really have reshaped the leaderboard, and it could happen again because our next race is another monument. It's Liège-Bastogne-Liège, a hilly classic through the Ardennes forest of Belgium. and that is a very unpredictable race. So any team could stand to profit, except maybe Castelli, the way they've been riding. But the action not over in the one-day classics. So thanks for always just watching, and we'll see you next time for Liège-Bastogne-Liège.